All right, and we are live. Wait for everybody to start filing in. Start filing in, indeed. I'm going to retweet my live stream real fast, so please excuse me. All right, there we go. Hopefully everybody is doing good today. We have a few things to talk about. Got some updates. Demonetized 4 will be out today. I've been trying to upload it. There's a Patreon. It takes a very strangely long amount of time to like process the video when I upload it onto Patreon. I don't know why. Doesn't happen on YouTube or anything like that, but it should be up anytime now. You'll see it on my Telegram. I'll post up when that video is up. All right, we got enough people in here now. I can go ahead and do my little intro. Welcome, everybody, to Kalibrated, episode number 65. Obviously, we're going to be talking about F-16s today. We are also going to be talking about the situation in Israel and in southern Lebanon. We are going to talk about the ongoing struggle that the Ukrainians are having across the front. I'm going to go over some map updates and stuff like that. But first and foremost, if you guys like my content, if you enjoy watching my videos, the best way you can show your support is just by liking, subscribing to the YouTube, liking the video, leaving a comment, retweeting the Twitter live, liking the Twitter live, and leaving a comment. If you guys do those things, that's literally the easiest way you can support me. I appreciate all of you so much for doing that stuff regularly. If you wanted to find more of my content, you can follow me on Twitter and Telegram. Those links are in the description of this YouTube video. And if you wanted to support me, you can do so through Patreon. I have a series on there titled Demonetized. I go over combat footage and stuff that I can't show on YouTube. And if you want to support me financially in another way, you can donate on YouTube through Super Chats, and I will answer questions that are asked through those Super Chats. All right. Without further ado, let's go over to the map. We have a few map updates today, not a whole bunch, but there's some important things going on. So we'll get into it and talk about that. Let me go over here. Let me make myself disappear because you guys don't need to look at my ugly mug. Okay. So the Russians, the map has been updated. So the green that you guys saw yesterday is gone now, or in the last video is gone. So all of the green you're seeing now has happened in the last 12 hours or so. Yes, 12 hours or so. The Russians have improved their position south of Novelsky. If you guys remember, the Russians had captured Novelsky at one point. The town doesn't really exist anymore. There's not really much of this structure here left remaining. The Ukrainians are trying to hold on to this area. It is on a little bit of a high ground right here. They want to hold this area at all costs because there's really not much back here to defend. This is the last little area that they can hold on to. So they're trying desperately to hold on to it. They counterattacked in this area, pushed the Russians out, and as you can see, the Russians have made a slight advance back towards and almost into the southern end of Novelsky. This pocket is pretty much gray zone right here, but the Ukrainians still have a presence in these fields. So this advance is important. And it is pretty expected considering that Netilove, Pervomaisky have fallen, and this was the primary means to keep this area supplied. Now the Ukrainians have to come through these dirt roads back here. They're not paved, and keeping this area supplied is difficult for sure. But they can do so out of Krasnohorivka. Okay. The other big update is that the chalk quarry in Bilohorivka has fallen. I'm actually going to take you guys over to the topographical map so I can show you what this means for the situation in the area. The Seversk front, I've said this multiple times, has a very good Ukrainian commander. They have done a fantastic job defending this region and not losing territory hardly at all. So, wait for it to load. Okay, so the quarry has a slight elevated territory right here. Most importantly for Bielorussia is control over this hill, as well as this hill to the south. And you can see how dominant this height is. So the Russians still, the chalk quarry is not the most important aspect of Bielorussia. It is a setback for the Ukrainians, as it is a defensible area. But the Ukrainians still need to hold. Hold on, let me go to my map real fast just so I can show you. Now that you've seen the topographical map, the Ukrainians need to hold this high ground right here, which is what you were looking at on the map. You can see that the Russians have tried multiple times. They attack regularly in this direction, trying to control this heights. Once they control this height, it's going to be difficult for the Ukrainians to hold Verkhonomenetsky and Novosilka right here. So this control of this hill is vital, as well as control of the hill just behind Bielorussia right here. But this entire salient is weakening day by day. There was a further Russian advance in this area. I have not been able to map it yet, but it was in the direction of Vimika. And the Russians have also likely advanced up through this field to the east of Rozdalivka. However, we still don't have a geolocation for that, so I have not made my map changes there. But you can see how the salient for Seversk is starting to develop pockets that are not ideal for the Ukrainians to be sitting in. A lot of different little pockets all around, and the Seversk salient is bulging now, which is not good. Okay. Hi from Belgium. Is there ways to support the work you do? Yeah. If you go into my YouTube page, you can go into the description of this video and find all of the different ways that you can support me. I have a Patreon account. If you want to support me there, you gain access to more content as well. That is the easiest way you guys can support me. That link is in the description of my YouTube video. And if you guys are looking for my YouTube page, it's just Kalibrated. Super easy. Kalibrated with a K. All right, let's see. I got some questions in here. So is this pre-recorded? Hell no, bro. Nope, we do this live. Okay, here we go. Scott, will Russia use tactical nukes if NATO comes into Ukraine? No, not necessarily. Russia has a nuclear doctrine that allows them to respond with nuclear weapons when the Russian Federation is its sovereignty is threatened. So that tends to mean attacks on Russian territory proper. They have technically released authority for Ukraine because Ukraine is attacking Russian soil. It is an enemy state at this point. So they technically could, according to their doctrine. But guys, you often have to ask yourself, what does a nuke do? Nukes are not they're not very popular, right? If Russia uses a nuke, it undoes a lot of the progress they've made with China, India, Saudi Arabia, Africa, South America. The Russians are popular with the non-international community, if you will, right now. They are doing a lot of trade with India. They're making India a lot of money because India is selling Russian oil at a premium after refining it to Europe. So technically it's Indian oil. So this trade agreement is very strong. The Chinese-Russian trade agreement is growing stronger every day. They need each other so much. China needs Russia's energy resources, and Russia needs China's manufacturing capabilities and technology capabilities. So, not that Russia doesn't produce a lot of their own technologies, but China is a completely different beast. Uh, they support a good portion of the world with their manufacturing, so, or at least they used to. But this relationship is growing very strong. So using a nuke in Ukraine really doesn't serve Russia any purpose, and there's not a lot of good tactical nuclear targets in Ukraine. Tactical nukes are good for taking out massive troop concentrations, uh, destroying airfields, stuff like that. Uh, if Russia wanted to do a significant amount of damage, they would just use a lot of conventional means. They have, you know, you've never seen Russia launch hundreds of Iskander missiles in a single day, reloading them, going back out, firing them, just hitting every target that they possibly could. You don't see that. Russia could be doing that instead of using a nuke, and that's going to draw a lot less negative attention than using a nuke. Now, if NATO gets involved, the risk for nuclear escalation both ways goes up significantly. There's a couple ways it can go. The most common way I think it would go is, well, I guess there are two options. One, the U.S. Does something so escalatory in Ukraine, allowing the what we're going to talk about today, F-16s to take off in Poland or Romania. That could be one of these escalatory steps, which then strike Russia. Russia could only possibly perceive that as an attack from NATO, being supported, supplied, armed, committed basically by NATO against Russia. Russia would then likely use conventional means, just because, again, once you use a tactical nuke, you use that when you have no other options. You use a nuke when the chips are up and you have no other options. You're going to lose if you don't use one. So you would probably see a conventional response from Russia against airfields in Romania or Poland in this instance, just an example, and then the response from Romania, Poland, NATO would probably have to be nuclear against Russia, because they're, according to U.S. military doctrine, at least, if an aircraft carrier gets sunk by a enemy nation, that is grounds for nuclear release authority, right? So that nukes are not good. If you see a nuke getting used, guys, we got bigger issues. There's a lot more at play. There's a lot more going on than what appears to be happening right now. It still seems like the West is trying to hold on to this idea of a Ukrainian victory and a Russian defeat. They're trying to push the boundaries everywhere they possibly can, and there is always the risk for nuclear escalation when that happens. But in this instance, I still see it as sort of theater. I've said this frequently, that I think that a lot of what you see is theater. A lot of the fear mongering, the Russia's going to use nukes, sort of stuff, and on the other side, NATO is going to attack Russia from Ukraine. I still, I mean, we could be watching the complete collapse of an empire in real time, and this is an actual life or death struggle. But something still tells me that money is behind most of this, and nobody makes money. People make money from wars, but nobody makes money from nuclear wars. That's the risk to the well-being of the elite is so high that I see very little chance of that actually happening, unless something goes completely awry. There's a massive misstep, miscalculations, and then one side feels like if they're about to be annihilated. Basically, that's the only way I see that happening. Could it happen? For sure. I mean, Russia, like I said, Russia has the legal authority, according to their nuclear military doctrine, which they've had for decades, they have the ability to use nukes right now. I mean, they're being struck by Western missiles, which are using Western guidance and destroying and killing Russian citizens in Crimea, Russian troops. We know that the Global Hawks and the AWACS reconnaissance aircraft consistently fly down here, watch the bridge area. They watch Krasnodar. They watch Crimea here, and they conduct strikes and intelligence ISR gathering all over this region. So they're active members in the conflict. Every trigger for Russia's ability to use nuclear weapons has been met, right? But at the end of the day, a nuke doesn't benefit Russia. That's the and Russia wants everybody to know that they have nukes and that they basically could be using them right now if they wanted to, but they're doing the right thing and they're just going to win the war. And I think that's what the West is extremely concerned about. That's what Ukraine is extremely concerned about. Ukraine's priority right now is to drag the West into the war. The West's priority is to continue the proxy war without getting drug into it directly. And Moscow's priority is to win the war in Ukraine without dragging the West in and actually winning the war. So that's the gist of what's going on there. All right, I wanted to talk about the recent strike. We had a Russian missile strike on Ukraine involving Tu-95 strategic bombers. They flew up. They took off from Engels Air Force Base. They launched missiles into Ukraine. These are X-101 missiles. Again, I wanted to show you guys some evidence that I have of the modifications that have been made to the KH-101 or X-101. I use both because the Western sources always use X-101. So X-101 is Western. KH-101 is what, that's the Russian designation. So I prefer to use the proper designations. However, X-101 is frequently used. And I just wanted to show you guys that the usual unitary warhead on the X-101 cruise missiles are being replaced with cluster munitions. This is a significant change. It allows Russia to more effectively target air defense and airfields. Cluster munitions work really, really well against exposed airframes. Any ammunition storage that is not properly, protected with fortification. So air defense kind of falls into that category. When air defense cooks off, cluster munitions does a very, very good job of that. We saw those attacks occur, and primarily this most recent attack targeted the Kiev region, which is a slight change of pace. Lately, the attacks have been targeting the Kaminsky region. Specifically, it has been targeting this airfield up here. And this is the primary airfield that F-16s are, slated to take off out of. This is one of the airfields that is sort of up to NATO standards. It is a large airfield. It can house F-16s. It has underground or buried bunkers for the aircraft. I don't know if they'll fit F-16s necessarily, but as you can see, pre-war, this facility was littered with Su-24s. It is the primary airfield where Su-24s take out from. There have been rumors that most of the Su-24s in the Ukrainian Air Force have been eliminated, hence why the F-16s are now becoming so vital. They really just need the airframes. If they could get Su-24s, they would just take Su-24s and do the same thing they're going to do with the F-16s. Those don't exist anymore. Every single available airframe of Su-24, Su-25, MiG-29, and probably what the L-39 or it's like the Yak-39, the little trainer, has been cannibalized throughout all of Eastern Europe and donated to Ukraine to keep their fleet up and operating. But there are rumors, these are Russian rumors, that the Su-24 fleet has been predominantly destroyed. This is the reason I believe that they think this is because we have not seen a Storm Shadow or Scalp cruise missile attack in probably over a month now. That's pretty significant. For getting the green light to go ahead and use these weapon systems on Russian territory, striking Crimea has already been a thing, but using these on Belgorod region would be a significant opportunity for the Ukrainians, and we haven't seen it at all. They've had the green light for weeks now. They've used HIMARS. They've likely used ATACMS, but they have not used Storm Shadow or Scalp cruise missiles. I don't know what the specific reason is. There could be three reasons. One, the West is not allowing it, which doesn't really make sense. Two, the Su-24s have been destroyed. Or three, the Ukrainians are out of missiles to fire. The last two options, either way, is not good for Ukraine. The latter is bad because that means that Ukraine probably will not have any cruise missile capabilities for a very long time until potentially Taurus are released. But I'm having a hard time seeing how Tauruses are going to get released, and they're not ever going to be released in a significant quantity to actually make much of a difference. So this airbase has been the primary target. We've seen 3 or 4 strike days committed to completely destroying this base. And I think the reason is because the Ukrainians were planning on flying F-16s out of here. Again, what I've said the entire time is the logistics on F-16s is noticeable from space. So whatever airbase the Ukrainians start upgrading and preparing, it's quite obvious where the F-16s are going. And we recently saw a strike in Kiev. I believe I do not have evidence for this claim, but there were reports that 3 Kinzhal missiles were fired over the Belgorod region or the Kursk region, somewhere just north of Kiev up here. And these hypersonic missiles struck this airbase right here, along with those KH-101 cruise missiles with the cluster variant warhead, cluster munition variant. And it was swarmed by drones throughout the whole night. Again, this is a significant airbase. You can see it is capable of also being fitted for F-16s. This base, I think, took some significant damage the other night. We didn't get pictures or videos. We never get pictures or videos. But the Ukrainian sources, Ukrainian civilians were talking about how screwed up the situation was, how many hits they were receiving in this area at the time. And then the Ukrainian government came out and said, we intercepted 29 of 30 Russian cruise missiles. No, they went 30 for 30 on the cruise missiles, 1 for 1 on the Kinzhal. They went 100% on the Shahed drones, the Garand 2 drones, and then 1 Iskander made it through. That Iskander happened to be fired out of Crimea and hit the Odessa region. So that doesn't make any sense. That's a propaganda lie. I just want everybody to know. Ukraine Battle Maps and I went back and forth a little bit on it. He said that there was a strike in the Kiev region. It hit an industrial facility, so a separate strike from what I'm talking about down here at the airfield. And that industrial facility was completely destroyed. The firefighters fought a long fire there, and his claim was that it was an Iskander missile. I said, Well, no, there were no Iskanders fired out of the north because I watched these missile launches like autistic individual. So I know exactly where everything's coming from, and I've recognized most of the patterns. Um, and there was no ballistic missile launches reported out of the north. So there was no ballistic missiles that hit in the Kiev region. So whatever hit that industrial facility, I believe it was over here, was either falling debris, as he later claimed after he changed his story, or an intentional strike. I believe it was an intentional strike. The Russians came out and said that they struck a industrial facility that was being used in the repair of armored vehicles for the Ukrainian armed forces. And just so happens that in the Ukrainian propaganda for this strike, the industrial facility, they're doing propaganda of the firefighters fighting the fire, and everything happens to be blurred out. If it is a civilian target that was hit by falling debris, use the opportunity to turn Russia into a terror state. But instead, what do? You blur everything out and make everybody think, why are you blurring this out? You're probably hiding something. So that's where do you watch the launches? I follow multiple Ukrainian Telegram monitoring channels that do missile monitoring for all of the regions, and they actually do a very good job of accurately warning. They must have connections to some military group in Ukraine that feeds them the information. Oh man, I love it when people talk to me like this. Scott, as much as we love you, you are very naive regarding nuclear war. How am I naive? I literally just said it could happen. I'm saying that the chances of it happening are low. Russia has already crossed the threshold to use it, and they haven't yet for a very, very specific and wise reason. Uh, if you think that nuclear war is going to happen, then you should just stop listening to me and go start preparing to survive that, because that's going to be really, really shitty, and nothing that I say matters at all if that's what's about to happen. All right. So we saw the strikes on this airfield, and again, this is another one of the airfields that potentially could be used to fly F-16s out of. It is not as safe in the Kiev region, but Kinzhal's hit something, and this was the area that at least one specific pro-Ukrainian source had talked about there being explosions, very, very loud, and explosions that are unlike air defense working in this region. So again, censorship, everything gets covered up. We don't know what exactly happened. But the reason I talk about this is because this base and this base, these two areas at least, are the most likely to house the F-16s. These are the air bases that most people said were capable, and they were probably most likely being upgraded and fitted for the F-16s. Russia has just demonstrated that no matter what air defense you put there to defend it, no matter how high priority this area is, they will hit it at will whenever they want. This is a big problem. This is what I talked about for months and months and months, and how F-16s were never going to work unless there was some additional circumstances that allowed them to work. And I believe that they've been setting this up for a very, very long time. But what I think is going to happen, and they talked about it today, is that Warsaw and Bucharest are both going to house Ukrainian F-16s. And the way they're going to get around this whole, issue of starting a war with Russia, NATO starting a war with Russia by allowing these planes to land here, is they're going to house the planes in Romania. The planes are going to fly into Ukraine, where they are going to be then armed, and then they are going to fly on their sortie, strike the target, fly back, and then fly into Romania to be housed. or Poland to be housed. I don't think that that's going to work. That seems like a workaround for that seems to be a workaround for your bases that you were hoping to use getting absolutely annihilated, and Ukrainian AD being so degraded that they literally cannot keep a strategic position alive, a stationary strategic position alive for long enough. The other issue is you only have 12 F-16s, so I mean, you only have 12 pilots. So what I don't know what the actual plan here is. It's like dipping your toe in to war with no intentions of actually committing to it, but with the huge risk of it becoming a war, and then you're forced to commit to it. It doesn't make any sense. If you're going to have the F-16s on your territory, run the sorties out of your territory. Let's get this thing started. Instead, you're opening yourself up to attack. You're opening up the NATO alliance to a potential Article 5 situation, which everybody makes a huge deal out of Article 4 and Article 5 of the NATO treaty. But it is probably one of the most risky aspects of the entire alliance. You want it to exist and you never want it to be triggered. Because what happens when you have alliances like this, especially the NATO alliance, which is very big and the effects of a war against Russia will be felt wildly different in the US, in Western Europe, and in Eastern Europe. So you have an alliance that are geographically, not just culturally, not societally, but geographically are representing completely different positions when it comes to this war. Everybody in the US doesn't give a shit what happens in Europe, right? We don't care. We don't want to be dragged into a war in Europe because we don't want to go die for Europe, because we don't care about Europe. But we also don't care if there's a war in Europe that we fund and support and it doesn't reflect on us, that we never receive any of the negative consequences of that, or direct negative consequences, I would say. For Eastern Europe, at least for the civilians in Eastern Europe, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova, Romania, these areas, they have to decide if they're going to die for the United States and Britain and France and Germany, right? That is a big step. So when I say Article 5 is like the scariest thing, say you're flying planes out of Romania. And if I was Russia and there were planes flying out of Poland and Romania, I would strike Romania. I would strike Romania hard and viciously. And this is why. And I don't mean civilians, don't target civilians. I mean the military targets that you're going to target. You send the clear, if this is going to happen, you send the clearest message, and you force an Article 5 reaction for Romania. The reason why you force that Article 5, the reason why you force that Article 5 reaction or Article 4 reaction for Romania, the collective security, is that, do you think that France, Germany, Britain, and the US are all going to agree to go to war with Russia over strikes in Romania? If they do, they already want a war, and there's nothing stopping what's about to happen. If they don't want a war, like I suspect they don't, you're forcing the NATO alliance to basically dissolve itself, because either they go to war, which is a non-starter for most of the European countries and the United States, and you show that the alliance has no strength. We just struck Romania. You guys did nothing. We'll strike Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. Do you think that they're going to trade Vilnius for Washington? Do you think Berlin is going to save Bucharest? Do you think they're going to take a nuke for Bucharest? And then the idea of the NATO alliance crumbles. So Article 4, Article 5 of the NATO Charter are probably the most dangerous aspects to the NATO alliance in totality. The whole divide and conquer thing, the option there is way too strong for Russia in this situation. And honestly, I mean, just think to yourself: are you trading Birmingham for Kharkov, right? Warsaw? Are they? They talk big. They talk big, but when the chips are down and you either got to press the button or you don't, what do you do? I don't think they save Bucharest. I don't think they save Vilnius. So by taking on the responsibility of housing aircraft that are actively committing strikes against Russian territory, you are opening the NATO alliance up to disillusion, basically, if the Russians do exactly what I just said. Or the alternative, and this is the Russian gambit, right? Is that the West has already decided that they're going to war. And this would just be the next step, and you were almost playing into their hands. Um, I really hope that the latter isn't true, because that would be a absolute nightmare, and I would be, our generation, my generation, would be the people that would have to deal with that, and that's really, really shitty and sucky. But it is what it is. We haven't had a world war in about 100 years, so it's time. Thank you for the sticker, Tim Gibson. I appreciate you, brother. I didn't see that earlier. Difference between being able to present it as defensive. Your advice is terrible. Okay. Classic. Yes, exactly. What good is a military alliance if when your allies are attacked, you don't back them up? That's a perfect thing to state. I think that the U.S. would trade Washington for Berlin. I think that the U.S. would trade Washington for Paris, Washington for London. I think that those are the real allies of the United States. I don't think that Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova, you know, Slovakia, Hungary, Serbia. I don't think any of these places matter to the United States at all. They don't care. So, in terms of coming to their aid, um, it is what it is. All right, I'm going to talk to you guys about a couple of articles. If you guys have questions, go ahead and get some questions in too. Don't know what this is. Okay. Biden, Zelensky to sign a U.S. Ukraine security agreement at the G7. This is fancy talk. I'm going to explain kind of what this means. President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky will sign a bilateral security agreement at the G7 summit on Thursday that will pledge long-term defense and security cooperation. We want to demonstrate that the U.S. supports the people of Ukraine, that we stand with them, and that we will continue to help address their security needs, not just tomorrow, but out into the future, whatever the hell that means. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told reporter aboard Air Force One, Air Force on his way to the G7 summit site of Bari, Italy, will be sending Russia a signal of our resolve. Okay. The important aspect here is a U.S. official tells me that this is an executive agreement, so with the president, which means that the future president can withdraw from it. It also means that he can withdraw from it if he so too wishes. So this is just a nice little piece of paper that says we're with you and we are standing with you in resolve. That's all that this means. So security agreements are a joke. They don't do anything. They don't mean much. It's no different from the other security agreements that Ukraine has signed that have been completely and utterly worthless. Okay. The U.S. will send Ukraine another Patriot missile system after Kiev's desperate calls for air defense. So this is actually a common thing right now. It sounds like the Dutch, Germany, potentially Italy, and the United States are going to send Patriot batteries. So potentially 4 Patriot batteries are going to be sent to Ukraine. My question is, with the issue being the interceptor, how does sending Patriot batteries help? Right? If the interceptors are the issue, the ammunition for the launchers. If that's the issue, how does sending launchers help? Another point I would like to make is, why does Ukraine need more Patriot batteries? Are they potentially losing some of them? Have they potentially lost most of them? And is that why the Western allies are actively depleting their military's air defense capabilities to send them to Ukraine? Questions. I won't make any overarching generic statements here, but I think we can all put our finger on what's going on. Just more lies and just more deceit. Ukraine would not be desperate for air defense if they had maintained all of their air defenses that they've had for the entire war. By the way, we saw a S-300 battery, an entire Ukrainian S-300 battery get taken out by a double Iskander strike yesterday. So pretty big deal. Those aren't being replaced at all. So that's just a permanent loss for the Ukrainian armed forces. I have one more. Actually, I have a couple more. So the U.S. expands sanctions against Russia, which targets chips sent to them via China. The United States on Wednesday dramatically broadened sanctions on Russia, including by targeting China-based companies selling semiconductors to Moscow as part of its effort to undercut the Russian military machine waging war on Ukraine. Among the steps, the U.S. Treasury said it was raising the risk of secondary sanctions for foreign financial institutions that deal with Russia's war economy, effectively threatening them with losing access to the U.S. financial system. This is not for Russia. This has nothing to do with Russia. This is the West struggling to cope with the Russia-Chinese, the Russo-Sino alliance that is now it's stronger than an alliance. They are. If Russia goes to war, China will go to war with Russia. That's basically where they're at right now. The U.S. is now struggling because this was not supposed to happen. They were supposed to pull Russia away from China through regime change and then deal with China on its own. The U.S. only knows how to do one thing, and that's levy sanctions. That's what they're going to do against China. They're already setting it up. You can see that the whole article is not about Russia at all. It's about targeting Chinese companies that are cooperating, which just is a way to strangle the Chinese economy. Putting sanctions on a foreign country for conducting international trade is kind of what fascism is, right? Pretty crazy. Trying to control who other people trade with. Anyway, the U.S. has been lining up sanctions on China for a very, very long time. The big sanctions are coming. They're probably going to require something like Taiwan to initiate that. And that I believe that's the world we're headed in, where we have this. It's people are going to try to call it multipolar. It might be slightly multipolar. I think it's going to be more bipolar with two very strong axes, and that's how we're going to, continue in the future. And just setting up sanctions on China, using Russia as your means to do so is pretty smart, I would say. Are we at the decay stage of capitalism already? I think we've been in the decay stage of capitalism for a while. That's okay, though. And that is not an anti-capitalist statement. That is just a natural progression of capitalism and where we are as an empire and society. All right. One more article, and then we will call it good. Ukraine extends blackouts as Russian bombings continue. Very dramatic picture of a restaurant, which, hey, restaurants are still open, but they're under candlelight. Uh, neat little thing there. You think a country that's being bombed into the Stone Ages would not have fine dining in one of its larger cities. Hey, but hey, that's just, Ukrainians are facing extended blackouts of up to 8 hours. Why is this guy not fighting? Why is this guy eating dinner in a dark room? Get him in a trench. All right, sorry. Ukrainians are facing extended blackouts of up to 8 hours on Wednesday as their country grapples with severe damage to its power stations caused by ongoing Russian attacks. President Vladimir Zelensky, speaking on Tuesday at a conference on the reconstruction of Ukraine, said Russia had destroyed half of the country's electricity generation capacity since it began pummeling its energy facilities in late March. So by omission, the Russians have done 50% complete damage to Ukraine's generation facilities. That's crazy. That's a lot of damage. And it's happening during the summer. You're seeing 8-hour blackouts in the summer. What happens in the rough winter when things start getting cold and people want to turn on their heat? What this could be lining up to be is a mass exodus from Ukraine if these infrastructure strikes continue. It's what's going to end up happening, because if you're looking at 12, 16-hour blackouts in Western Ukraine because of your energy generation capacity being so low, there's almost no point being in the country. Your economy won't run. Everything is going to be shutting down, and I do think that this is how the Russians are planning on really wrapping this up. Come the winter months, they're going to just continue every couple of weeks taking out a few generation facilities, and soon Ukraine will be down to probably their nuclear power plants, which I doubt the Russians will end up hitting, even though they should sever all of the connections to those nuclear power plants. They probably won't end up doing that, so Ukraine will have some power, but taking out all of the thermal power plants and hydroelectric power plants and connections from Europe would be a way to bring an end to this war. Probably what Putin should have done from the beginning, but I don't think Russia was ready at the time, so it is what it is. And the reason I say that is because if he would have gone in and he would have smacked the holy living hell out of Ukraine in that first couple of weeks and forced negotiations, you probably wouldn't have hundreds of thousands of dead Ukrainians right now. That's in hindsight. I'm attempting to save Ukrainian lives, because what we're going to see is the complete demographic collapse of Ukraine because of this continuing war. So I often make jokes that I'm very pro-Ukrainian because I actually don't want the people of Ukraine to die, and I try to make this point very clear when I'm talking. I don't want Ukrainians to die. I don't want Russians to die. I don't want anybody to die. I want everybody to stop dying. I want there to be a negotiated settlement, but I'm also a realist, and I can see that there is a 0.00000% chance of a negotiated settlement now coming out of this conflict, unless it is a surrender by one side or the other. So this whole pussyfooting around sort of thing is not actually saving lives anymore. It's just getting more people killed the longer this war drags on, honestly. Sucks. And the most pro-Russian thing you could really ask for is a continued slow war of attrition to the last Ukrainian, as almost every pro-Ukrainian seems to ask for. I don't get it. The logic isn't there. I want to save Ukraine, but the only way we can save Ukraine is by completely destroying Ukraine. The math does not add up, boys. All right. I will see you guys on the next one. Be sure to look out for that video. If I can get it up, it should be done now. I can go over and check in just a second. And then I will post that on the old Telegram, and you guys will have that. So be on the lookout for that in the coming days. Patreon, like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Telegram. Thank you all so much. Have a blessed day. Have a fantastic night. If it's night, have a fantastic morning. If it is your morning, have an amazing day. Make it better for somebody else and make it good for yourself while you're at it. Bye, guys.